Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Monday. It is the 25th day of April 2022. I hope that you had a good weekend this past weekend. I hope that you're safe and healthy and that your family is also safe and healthy and that the needs of you and your family in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as health are being met. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field and those who are the first responders who are out here every day trying to save lives. Blessings upon those that pick up garbage for us to keep streets and sidewalks and parks clean, and those also that make deliveries for our convenience. Blessings upon those men and women who are trying every day to rescue, deliver, recover the victims of child molestation, the victims of pedophilia, the victims of prostitution and child prostitution, of pornography and child pornography, the victims of human trafficking and sex slavery, and double curses on the perpetrators, the profiteers, and the perverts who take pleasure in the traffic of human misery. Finally, blessings upon the homeless. There are nearly 600,000 men, women, and children who are living on the streets of the United States right now. And there are millions around the world in similar or worse conditions. Blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. I was very fortunate yesterday to have had an opportunity to spend time with a few members of Knicks Nation here in Orlando, Florida. Shout out to Elixir and his wife. Condolences again to the death of her father. Also, brother New York's finest, New York Knicks finest. Also, brother Yakoba. Also, of course, my dear brother Castle King. And then there was my friends, Damien, my man, my brother Dirk. And we had a wonderful time yesterday. We ate together. We were talking Knicks. We talked a little Bible stuff. It was a beautiful, beautiful time here in Orlando, Florida to spend. And I just rejoiced because I did not start this channel knowing that we would end up even having something like that happen. But it was a great blessing, man. So we really enjoyed it. I really felt like I was among friends. It wasn't even like we were strangers. We were friends. So that was the first time most of us actually met face to face. It was really a beautiful, special time. And I definitely want to do it again. As a matter of fact, those of you who were there yesterday who see this video, I'm going to be here in Orlando another 10 days or so. So we definitely got to get together again if we can, maybe this coming weekend if possible. Y'all let me know what y'all think. And so that was excellent. And it's also interesting that we're doing on the spiritual side, just for a side note here, we're doing a get together on the Memorial Day weekend. We're planning on May 2023 get together, Memorial Day weekend 2023. And a lot of the people that have responded so far are from Florida. So we're waiting to the end of the year till we get a consensus of locations on the people that want to come. And we'll try to plan around the most convenient location where majority of the people come from. I had thought it was going to be New York, but at this point, it looks like Florida is the leading candidate because we got a lot of people from Florida that are interested in coming there. So we'll see. And I'm glad to be down here. Thank you again all for your prayers and support. My father is doing a lot better. As far as his physicality. So he's improving. He needs to continue to exercise and things like that. But he's doing a lot better. And I'm happy for his improvement and for all the support you guys have given. That's been a tremendous blessing. I can't even really, honestly, literally, I can't measure how much of a blessing it has been. And so I really want to thank you all so much for that. Now, speaking of the Knicks, now, if you haven't listened up to this part of the video, I get people that tell me, I thought this was basketball. My life is more than basketball. But I love the New York Knicks. And so here, I got some things I wanted to share with you. I saw an article the other day, an interesting article. And I have to be honest, the majority of basketball articles I see, I don't like them. It's just me. I don't like them. I think they're off. I think they're sometimes just trying to write something and throw something out there. And you can tell there's no thought or energy real forethought or energy or actual knowledge being put into the article. That's just me how I feel. But once in a while, something pops up in the good. And somebody had brought up an article, I forgot who it was, about the things the Knicks need to do this summer. And I was thinking about that, and it was a good article, and I felt like it made good points. And there are things, obviously. This is a big summer for the Knicks. This is a big summer. Why is it a big summer? It's not a summer, like we're a playoff contender that's been in the playoffs and we're reaching the Eastern Conference Finals, and we're trying to push to that next level. Not in that regard. It's a big summer in terms of next steps. The problem that we have had, that's sure, as I see I try not to do that because we all feel like, all of us in Knicks Nation feel like we are part of the Knicks, right? Because we love our team so much, but it's really them. It's not my team. It's not your team. It's James Dolan's team. But one of the reasons the Knicks have had issues developing as an organization is because they are continually making bad decisions, or have been in the past. And this is where somebody like myself or others, like some of the brothers I met yesterday that go back a long way with the Knicks, that go back, into the 90s, into the 80s, into the 70s, even into the 60s. Some of us that go back with the Knicks, we have the memory of a long list of bad organizational decisions. Now, one of the things, I'll be honest, when I saw Mark Cuban buy the Dallas Mavericks, I think it was in the 90s, and I saw his enthusiasm, and at first, I actually thought he was going to mess up, because like some owners who don't know basketball try to act like they know basketball because they own the team, and it becomes like their toy. The team, because these guys are very wealthy, right? So the team becomes like their little toy, and they start playing with it, and the team gets messed up. But Cuban not only knows basketball, he knew how to hire the right people, and he was supportive of all the people he hired long term. He wasn't trying to look for quick answers. And I guess I'm saying is that Dallas Mavericks have shown, since he's owned the team, that more often than not, they are a winning organization. They won one championship, since he's been the owner, but that's the only championship they ever won, because they go back to the ABA, the Dallas Chaparrals. They go back to the ABA, so they've been around a long time, but they won. But it's just the tightness of the organization, the commitment to the personnel, putting the right personnel there, and letting it play out and seeing what you have, that keeps that organization, and then having the full support of the owner on every level. He's one of the guys as owners that I respect the most because of how he has handled his organization. Okay. And on James Dolan's side, when he first inherited, and that's what it was, he inherited the control of the Knicks. It was like a toy to him at first, and he was playing with it, and he didn't know what he was doing, right? But as he starts over the years to feel the wrath of the fan base, and he starts over the years to see the results of moves that he pushed, I feel like he has learned from his mistakes. And really, I started seeing at the hiring of Phil Jackson, I started to see somebody that was learning from their mistakes. And it's not because Phil Jackson was a success. It was the premise about which the hiring took place. The premise was, from James Dolan, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me hire somebody that I believe knows what they're doing, and let them run this team. Let them run this basketball franchise. That was the premise of him going out in the middle of the country out there in Montana, or wherever the hell he went, to really induce Phil Jackson. He felt like Phil Jackson was some genius, and he had won all these championships, and he must know basketball. So I'm going to bring him and give him the keys to the franchise and let him see what's going on. But of course, he learned, even though that was the beginning of it, and Phil Jackson was a failure in that regard. He learned, that was the beginning of him learning, him being Dolan, saying, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. I need to put people in place that know what they're doing. So then the second move behind that was putting somebody in place that he personally knew and trusted. Steve Mills. Okay, Steve Mills from Hempstead, Roosevelt, Long Island. I got to put that shout out there because I was friends with some of his brothers, and he was a hero of mine coming up, and he doesn't even know me, but because he was already at Princeton when I met his brothers. But yeah, he was in charge, and Steve Mills, not being a long-term basketball executive, he had been in Madison Square Garden executive. And there's a lot more to Madison Square Garden than the New York Knicks. So he had other responsibilities. But as a basketball executive, he was very new. He had been in the organization a long time, and he's still in the organization. But because he had worked closely with James Dolan in other areas, and because, of course, like all of us, he loved the New York Knicks, obviously Dolan felt comfortable putting him in charge. Now, New York has a very short patient stick. The fan base, the media in general, and the media especially hates the Knicks because of James Dolan. And I'm not blaming James Dolan, I'm blaming the media. But because of that, Steve Mills wasn't permitted to make mistakes. And he made them. He did some good things too. But people still hate on him. And y'all should just think back. He wasn't in charge that long. Maybe 2 seasons. Okay? But he wasn't permitted to grow and make mistakes so that he can learn, in that position. So he comes in. He first thing he does is first 2 things that he did that I remember. First thing is he went and got back the draft pick that the Knicks drafted, Tim Hardaway Jr. from Atlanta, which I think was a good move. And the plan was Hardaway Jr. was supposed to be a second or third option to Kristaps Porzingis. Okay, and if that would have worked out, that would have been a good situation. But that was a good plan. And then the second part of his plan was to not trade any first round picks for anybody. Because the Knicks had a habit, especially under Isaiah Thomas, this was true, but prior to that, of trading away first round picks to try to get some sort of savior to New York. And then losing draft picks and therefore not developing young players, not developing from within, and still going in the same place or going backwards. So he said, all right, I'm not going to trade draft picks. And those of us that knew the history were rejoicing at just that. I'm not trading my draft picks. That was big because that set us up for where we are now. So now he goes, Mills, he gets Scott Perry with him, and he hires David Fizdale. Bad move. That was a bad move. Okay. They should have known better. Because look, what we all saw of David Fizdale as a head coach, they're behind the scenes. They're there. We're not. And they should have saw that before they hired him, I feel like. And so he was not prepared to be a head coach in New York. He could talk a good game, but in terms of understanding, in terms of dealing with the pressure of being in New York, in terms of the development, they weren't on the same page, and that showed, right? He didn't, obviously, it would be something if they all said, we're going to play kids like Kevin Knox, we're going to lose a lot of games for a couple of years, but we're going to make draft picks and we're going to develop. But nobody knew what was going on, including David Fizdale. So they did not have a plan, cohesive plan together, a long-term plan. It seemed to change night to night, So, and then of course Steve messed up and signed like 4 power forwards, and so that's what happened. And then of course James Dolan has to step in again, and his friend and his colleague, his employee, Steve Mills, he didn't fire him. He just removed him from that position. Steve Mills is still in the MSG organization, as he should be. And then he fired David Fizdale, as they should have. And that brings us, then they had Mike Miller as an interim coach who was really good, in the G League. G League coaching is extremely important in development, more than most people realize. And Mike Miller was really good at that. And he, I kind of felt like, even though he wasn't my number one choice, I still feel like Mike Miller needs to get a head coaching position somewhere. I wouldn't have been angry if the Knicks had hired him, as the head coach. But James Dolan needs a name that knows what he's doing. So he hires first, and this is the best move James Dolan has ever made since he's been the controlling owner of the Knicks. He hires Leon Rose. Why do I say that's the best move? He hires an executive. Well, a guy's really a former agent, but he's smart. See, I don't care what anybody thinks. I believe Leon Rose is extremely intelligent. He's not stupid. Okay? He's smart. Number 1. Number 2, he's been around NBA basketball 20 years or more, right? So he's not stupid. He's not a rookie. He knows pressure. If anybody knows pressure, it's NBA basketball agents and sports agents on big time levels in Denton. It's pressure. It's a doggy dog world. It's a shark infested waters. That's the agent game. I've been there. I'm telling you, it's not. Never been an agent, and it's for that reason. I can't play that game, but it's a tough game, bro, for real. So he brings in an executive that's smart, and he's leaving the keys in this executive's hands. Okay, smart move. Okay, then the executive that's smart shows how smart he is. Why? He goes and he brings in Walt Perrin, one of the most important people in your organization. If you're trying to build the right way, is your scouts. Okay, you need scouts that can spot talent. Okay, you don't need scouts that's going to spot busts. You need scouts that's going to be real and scout talent. And so Walt Perrin has a history from Utah Jazz of spotting talent. Okay, Walt Perrin drafted Donovan Mitchell. Okay, so that's who he hires. Then he hires a capologist, Brock Aller, from Cleveland. Okay, why? Because that's going to be an issue once we start getting our rookies like R.J. Barrett, like Mitchell Robinson, right? These young guys start to pop, and it's coming time for their extensions. You got to decide how you're going to get this done and whether it's worth getting done. Here come Brock Aller, okay? Dealing with Cleveland, dealing with LeBron James and trying to get all of the salary to fit under the massive salary of LeBron James and Kyrie Irving or whatever he was dealing with Kevin Love to get that to fit to win a championship in Cleveland. Smart move, okay? Now he's trying to get a head coach. He's worked with Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau was his client, okay? So Rose knows Tom Thibodeau. Yes, Tom Thibodeau has thorns on him. He got warts on him, but you know what you're getting with him, okay? He hires Tom Thibodeau, right? Most of us would have liked to see Mark Jackson, who's now being considered now. It looks like I'm feeling like the door is now being opened for Mark Jackson to come back on the sidelines of the NBA. That's really good news. And you know what made that happen, which I'm disappointed it took so long to happen? You know what made that happen? LeBron James. Just him mentioning, I want Mark Jackson to be a coach, is enough to bring Mark Jackson back. Okay? I wish other stars had done that. I mean, that would have been good. See, that's understanding of a platform like a LeBron. He says, all he had to do was say, I really would like to see Mark Jackson. Boom, he's back. And so I'm seeing now rumors, I'm seeing wins, I'm feeling wins of Mark Jackson coming back into the coaching profession, which is a really good thing. Mark Jackson's a great coach. I know, I follow him since he was at Bishop. He was at, I can't remember the high school. He was at a Catholic high school in New York, not Archbishop Malloy. He was another Catholic high school. And then he went to St. John's. And then he went to, and I remember him getting reamed by Lou Carnesecca and playing through it. Then coming to the Knicks. And now he's, a broadcaster. Always, I loved his game, loved his philosophy in basketball. Always good. He showed his game as far as a coach when he developed Golden State before Steve Kerr got there into a championship level team. Okay. So they were a crap house before Mark Jackson got there. They were terrible, really bad before Mark Jackson got there. So it's good that he be back. And so I would love to see Mark Jackson get a shot, and it would be appropriate for him to be in New York. I don't think that's going to happen though. Not now, maybe later. But you got Tom Thibodeau. And Tom Thibodeau is a defensive coach. The glory days of New York, both in the championship eras as well as the 90s when they didn't win the chip, getting blocked by Jordan and them, was built on defense. Okay. The 70s game had the Knicks played tremendous defense, led by Clyde, led by Willis Reed, led by Dave DeBusschere, Jerry Lucas. All them cats could play some tough Mike Reardon. Them cats could play some tough defense, baby. And then offensively, the ball moved like poetry. It was sweet watching the Knicks play. In fact, I was spoiled as a little kid watching that happen because I just thought everybody played basketball like that all the time. I learned later, no. Okay. But yeah, that was beautiful. And so defense was the foundation. And so you bring in a defensive coach because the Knicks have been lacking defense for 20 years. Okay. So you bring in a defensive coach. In the first year, we see what happened. That defense was awesome. It was beautiful. It was elite. It was tops in the NBA. Okay. But then he subs out a couple of guys. Leon does. We can understand, on the Elfrid Payton side, why that happened. The Reggie Bullock thing, I understand in the sense that Reggie Bullock wanted 3 guaranteed years, and Leon only wanted to give him 2 guaranteed years. And that was the thing. And that's why he ended up in Dallas. Dallas gave him the 3 guaranteed years. I understand that, because even though we see what happened as a result of those 2 guys coming out of our lineup, out of our system, they were both, like, Elfrid Payton wasn't really your starting level point guard of a playoff team. Neither is Reggie Bullock a starter, a consistent. He's a fill-in starter. He's really a rotation guy on a playoff team, as he would be playing in Dallas. Now, he's been starting in Dallas, but that's because Tim Hardaway is hurt. Okay. And Luka's been hurt, but he's really a rotation piece on a playoff team or a championship team. And so I can understand why that happened. Now, it didn't look good when he went and he goes and he gives a 4-year, $78 million contract to Evan Fournier, but which 3 years a guarantee, because Evan Fournier is a starter, but he is not, again, he has never shown himself to be a starter on a playoff team, a successful playoff team. They did make the playoffs in Orlando a couple of times while he was there, but he was never now, internationally, his French team is tight, and he has been starter on that as well. So I can see why. And then, of course, he's a shooter. So I can see why he might have did that, but we lost, as we see now. We lost a lot defensively, having Evan Fournier starting. Great shooter. Obviously broke the Knicks record for 3-pointers. But again, we lost sight of our premise. We lost sight of our foundation in terms of defense. That's the foundation. Tom Thibodeau is, above all things, a defensive coach. Now, we were talking yesterday, and we came to an agreement, all of us in Knicks Nation that was eating yesterday. Tom Thibodeau is a great defensive coordinator. I mean, great, elite, like all time, but not a head coach. He really isn't. It's like saying, like I just said about Reggie Bullock, rotation piece, right? Don't depend on him as your starter if you want to win a chip, right? He's really solid rotation piece. Right? We talk about Julius Randle. He's not a number 1 option. He is a second or third option on a playoff and championship team. You make him number 1 option, you're going to be at a disadvantage, right? Well, Tom Thibodeau is not really, honestly, to me, a long-term NBA head coach because of all of the things we know about the faults that he has. But as a defensive coordinator, you put him in charge of defense, you're going to get elite defense. Okay. And while he is the head coach right now, we need to focus on his strength. That's Leon. Leon needs to focus on what Tibbs' strength is to bring out the best in Tibbs, which is defense. Give him personnel that plays defense. I know he wants 3-point shooting. That's what he wanted. Tom did. He wanted to have, remember, it was 30 shots a game. He wanted to get 30 shots, 33 pointers up a game. But you lost the defense badly. Okay. Then he brings in Kemba Walker. Now, I never believed Kemba Walker was going to be a long-term solution at the point guard. And I don't believe Leon believed that. And the reason I said that's because of his contract. It was a 2-year deal. It's a short-term deal. Why? Because I felt like Leon was hoping in the interim to get a real long-term solution at the point guard position. And I believe he did that when he drafted Emmanuel Quickley and Deuce McBride. Okay. But we yet to see that. We talk about that in a second. But that's where we gets us to where we are now. So this summer becomes very important in terms of, we took a step back in getting Kemba and Evan. We took a step backwards. Okay. Tom is going to play the veterans. That's who he is. Leon should know that. Okay. That's who he is. So now what do we do going forward? What we'd like to see going forward is a return to the defensive focus. That's the first thing I want. I want to see the return to that first year of Tom Thibodeau where the defense was ferocious. See, that's what causes opponents this fear coming to Madison Square Garden. When they used to fear coming to Madison Square Garden with Patrick Ewing was our center, because they knew they were going to come in, they were going to be in a war defensively. They knew they were going to be, and they were every night. When you showed up at Madison Square Garden, you're going to be in a physical war with the New York Knicks. It's been too long that scrubs, has-beens, rookies come into the Garden and score 40, get 30, have career nights with 3. That was embarrassing this year. That was the most embarrassing thing for me. We need a return to the defensive philosophy. That starts with the personnel. Okay? Kemba and Evan gotta go. Gotta go. I know Evan shoots well, but we got kids that can shoot well. Okay? We're trying to develop going forward. We took a step back in our rebuild, in our development this year because of that. So I want to return to the defensive philosophy. That starts to me with putting who you drafted, Quentin Grimes, Cam Reddish, okay, Deuce McBride, your defensive focused players. You want them, and they're young, to get time to bring us back to the Tom Thibodeau philosophy, the defensive mindset. You need to re-sign Mitchell Robinson. Okay? People like to nitpick. He can't shoot. He can't do this. He can't do that. That's the problem with y'all in Knicks Nation. Y'all got to understand how big your spotlight is when you shine it on the player and seeing all their faults. You're not going to find the perfect basketball player. But Mitchell Robinson is elite on the defensive end. He is elite. Okay? Now, I saw, and some of y'all saw, Mitchell Robinson played 72 games this year, which, you want that. But he played through a lot of nicks and cuts and pains and bruises that if it wasn't a contract year, he wouldn't have played through. How do you solve that? When you sign him, it's typical under circumstances like this that part of his pay is based on how many games he plays. So if he wants to get the full, whatever it is, $14 million for the season, a $2 million of that, he has to play at least 65 games to get that. 65, 70 games. He got to play that. That will prevent the Reggie Bullock situation where he sits down and just collects his $10 million this year. Okay? That will prevent that. So you must re-sign him. He's the defensive anchor of your defensive unit. An elite rim protector and rim runner. Offensive rebounder, top 2 in the NBA. Finisher, top 2 or 3 in the NBA. She's not Jokic. He's not shooting threes. We're rebuilding. Jokic is an MVP. There ain't many of those around. Okay? Yeah, there are other centers that can shoot, but where their teams at? Vukovic can shoot. Chicago getting ready to get spanked by Milwaukee. Okay? Now, Lopez can shoot. Brook Lopez can shoot. But he got Giannis. And Jrue Holiday. And Chris Middleton. So yeah, he doing all right. But I don't see no 3-point shooting 5 that winning any championships yet. Okay? Even Jokic, MVP. And I think he was second this year to Giannis in the MVP rate. Rightfully so. But Denver, no, you need defensive anchors like Giannis. Defensive player of the year type players to anchor your defense. Okay? That's Mitch Rob. Okay? Bamba can shoot threes. And yeah, he could block shots, but we haven't seen him on the stage in New York with the pressure of New York, with the lights of New York, with the media in New York, with the criticism of New York Knicks Nation. We ain't seen that yet. We ain't. So we don't know. That's what I'm saying. Literally, we don't know. But with Mitch, we know. I'd rather have a 24-year-old I know what I'm getting guy than possible. Especially if I only got to pay him $56 million. On the NBA scale, that ain't big money. Okay? So, we got to re-sign Mitchell Robinson. We must trade Julius Randle. Why? Because Julius Randle is in front of Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin is a better team player than Julius Randle is. He's got a better mental focus than Julius Randle does. He gets along with the media, his fan base. He's from the fan base. He's one of the fan. He's from there. Okay? And if given time, he has shown what he can do. Okay? 19, 20, 35, 42. What is that? That's the last 5 games he started and played more than 30 minutes. Okay, yeah, it was at the end of the season. But let's say he gives us 18 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, and good defense. which he's been doing. Some of y'all get caught up in watching him from the rookie year defense. Like some of y'all still talking about Mitch gets in foul trouble when he ain't fouled out in more than like 2 or 3 games in the last 2 seasons. Okay, but you're looking at what he was as a rookie. You're looking at what Obi was as a rookie when he was getting 8 minutes a game. Instead of understanding what he's going to be getting 30 minutes a game. We need him starting. We drafted him 8th overall. We need to trade Randall. Why? Can't handle New York mentally. He cannot. He has shown that. Not always a good teammate. Terrible attitude when it's not going well. Compare his attitude when it's not going well to RJ Barrett's when it's not going well. 2 different players. And RJ is 21. Julius is 27. Okay? He's not the leader. He's been picked to be the leader, and he's unfit to drive that car. Period. Never mind the 2010. He's been averaging 2010 his whole career. This is a situation you look at his stats, and it don't mean anything. Look at the 2010, and look at the career record of his teams. It's under 500. He's been 8 years in the league, and his teams overall are under 500. Say what you want about Tom Thibodeau. But in his 10 years of being an NBA head coach, his career is over 500. He's a winning coach. That's winning to me. Some people count winning as only championships. That's why y'all in New York and people don't even want to come here. Winning in the NBA is hard, y'all. It's not easy. It's not easy to win in the NBA. Okay? You need a whole organization to do that. And even though I said Tom Thibodeau is not a real head coach, he's the defensive coordinator, one thing I can't take from him, he's a winning coach. Okay? He got pride and he's a winning coach. Stubborn as hell, but he's winning though. Okay? So, Julius Randle though is not. This is a bad match. He needs to go. And the thing, so we talk about what? Sign Mitchell Robinson. Julius Randle needs to go. We need to now focus on defense. Focus on what we want to become. Defense start first. Okay? RJ needs to be re-signed. RJ needs to be re-signed. I don't know what the number is going to be. It's going to be over 100 million. It's not going to be 181, but it's going to be somewhere in between. Okay. Sign the boy. Let's keep going. He'd be the first Knick to be re-signed after we drafted him since Charlie Ward. That's how incompetent our team has been, our organization. But we're on the way now. Okay. Now, commit to the youth. Commit to the youth and build around RJ Barrett. Build around RJ Barrett. You got the players already. You got shooters. Quentin Grimes can shoot the ball. Cam could really shoot. Give him some time. He could shoot. Bring defensive players in. RJ committed to playing great defense. He's committed to it. He's still learning. He's 21. He's committed to it. Okay? Build around him. That's, again, another reason you want Obi. Obi understands it would go through RJ. He wouldn't be competing with RJ to see who's the leader of the team, like Randall would. Build around RJ. And then bring in the young players that complement the kids that you already have. That brings us to the draft. Okay? I don't know who we're going to draft. But my philosophy is this. I'm not saying best player available because I don't want to pick a 5. We don't need a 5. I don't want a rookie 5. I don't need another point guard. I don't need Ty Washington. So no, it's not best player available. I want a wing or a power forward. Okay? The power forward would back up Obi Toppin after we trade Julius Randle. Okay? He'd be our backup there. A wing is just a wing. You got to win with wings. Period. And they compete. And that's what you got in this draft. Very heavy wing and point guard. Wing and power forward. If I'm drafting and if I'm the Knicks and I get anything in the top 4, I'm taking that kid, whoever he is. Because in the top 4, what are you talking about? You're talking about Jabari Smith Jr. You're talking about Jaden Ivey. You're talking about Paolo Banchero, right? You're talking about either Mathurin or you're talking about Keenan Murray. You're talking about something that's going to be good, in your top 4. Something that's going to be really good. And so I'm taking whoever that kid is. If I get in the top 4, I'm taking him. And then I'm going to make adjustments on my roster based on that kid coming in because that top 4 talent is real deal. That's out here this year. The top 4 talent is real deal that's out here this year. So I'm looking at the top 4. Now, after that, after Mathurin, let's say, to me, Mathurin, has really moved up. Like, I'm not into Chet Holmgren. I'm not into him for long term because I think he's an injury risk. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. But on this particular year, I would want a Jabari, a Paolo, a Jaden, a Matherin, those type of kids, man, that, you know, we know they could play. There's some other kids. I love Jeremy Sohan. I love Sohan. Defense, and young enough to develop some offense. Defense and rebounding, though, on an elite level. He's an elite defensive player. He's probably, to me, the best defender in this draft. He's probably with Scotty Barnes from last year. Draft was Rookie of the Year. I love Scotty Barnes. Somebody last year asked me, who would I move up for to get last year? Scotty Barnes. I would move up to get him. I think he was the only player I would have moved up to get last year. Okay, because I knew that he was going to be that type. Coming out of Leonard Hamilton's Florida State program too, forget it. But Sohan is on the defensive level of Scotty Barnes, and I would take him if I could. Now, the good thing about him is he's going to be in that 9 to 12 range. He'll be there, and so we could get him. He's not flashy offensive 30-point a game dude, but he is winning defense. Team basketball dude. I want that. Okay, so yeah, that's draft. Draft well this year. What's going to really tell us in terms of free agency where we're going? And let's be real now. RJ Barrett, I just said build around Barrett. RJ's best friend is Zion Williamson. You got to understand his best friend is Zion Williamson. They're best friends, not best friends. That's his homie. Okay, so what's going to tell me if Zion is coming to New York? This one thing. If Zion does not sign an extension between this summer when he's eligible to do so and October, he's out of New Orleans. That's as simple as that. I can't make it any simpler than that. And David Griffin's hands will be tied because he would have to try to trade Zion to get something for him because he's going to be unrestricted after the end of this 4 years. And you're not going to lose Zion for nothing and not feel the pain behind your ownership. So you got to trade him. And you already know there's only one team in the market that he wants. This is going to be a powerful leverage tool. And the reason is Zion's already making a minimum of $130 million right now without doing anything. If he was to retire from basketball today, he's going to make $130 million, probably more than that. Okay. So it's not the money. You can't entice him saying we can give you a 5th year. He don't care about that. Okay. He don't care. He's getting his money. This ain't, Mitch Rob trying to make up for 4 years and not getting paid. No, Zion got his money. So now what? Now, where does he want to play? Period. And some people are going to say, I don't like his injury history. I'm trying to be real with y'all. Let's be real, not what you want, what it is. Look at it. They're best friends. What you think? James Dolan going to say, I don't want him on the Knicks, and your best player who you're building around says, that's my best friend? Look what happened in Milwaukee. Giannis' brother is not an NBA player, and Milwaukee signs him. Why? Because Giannis wants him. Giannis is not, the Knicks had him. He's a good G League player. He could play in Europe, but he's not an NBA player. I mean, barely, but he wouldn't be in the league if it wasn't for his brother Giannis. Well, brothers and sisters, it's even worse here because Zion could play. Think what you want about his injury history. We know he could play, okay? So, they best friends. This is a big one. So, if he does not sign an extension with New Orleans, he's coming to New York. If he signs an extension with New Orleans, he's not coming to New York. It's as simple as that. And that's going to be a big one to tell. And I don't know what he's going to do. New Orleans is playing very well. That coach, I forgot his name. He's a really good coach, man. That young coach they hired in New Orleans, which would have been fired in New York by now. He's good. He is really good. And they got a nice squad. They've drafted well. They've gotten the right free agents. They're doing right. They're doing good. They're going to lose the series with the Suns, but they're going to show themselves well. They're already showing themselves well. So that's good. But so he might decide to stay there, and build on what they're doing there. He might. I don't know. And I don't want to try to predict that part, but I will predict this. If he doesn't sign an extension, he's leaving. Period. End of story. Okay. That's a big one right there. Other than that, Other than Zion, it's Donovan Mitchell and Jaylen Brunson. And we know I would talk about the Mitchell situation. I already talked about the Brunson situation, but let me just update the Brunson situation because I got to give him his props. He's been killing in the playoffs. He's been killing. He really has. To me, that's the ultimate test. 41, 31, and leading the team without Luka playing and beating Utah in the playoffs. Big time. Big time. So I don't like paying $80 million for that guy when I want Deuce McBride to start. But I can understand. If they did it, I'd understand. Okay, I'm not going to complain about it. Right? So that's the big one to me. That's the second big one is Jaylen Brunson. So we're going to see. And the thing is that I am not yet convinced that Jaylen Brunson is going to leave Dallas. That's the thing. See, some of y'all think it's automatic. It's not automatic. He loves it down there. He's with the best, to me, one of the best run organizations in basketball. Mark Cuban is cool, man. So he got Mark Cuban on his side. He got a nice environment. Dallas is a great city, and he's going to get his money. Cuban is going to pay him. Cuban is going to pay him. There's no doubt in my mind. He's going to name his number. Cuban's going to meet that number. Okay, so to me, there's an 80% chance he stays in Dallas. Okay, if it wasn't for this playoffs, I might have not said. In fact, I hadn't said that in the past. But the playoffs have changed everything. He is a playoff performer. Period. Now he's official, legit playoff performer. Okay, on a winning team. So he's gonna get his money. Question is, does he want New York, or does he want to stay in Dallas? It's very easy to stay in Dallas. It's gonna be difficult for him to leave that. They got the fan base. They got a great fan base down there. You just know they got a great fan base in Dallas. Okay, so it's gonna be hard. Okay, it's gonna be hard. But then again, if they don't sign him, I don't want them going chasing nobody else. Let's just see what we got with IQ and Deuce. Okay, and I think the summer league is going to be important in that regard. So Deuce is going to play in the summer league. Joko Bidas, as from what I've read, is going to play here in the summer league. So you got Joko Bidas, you got Deuce. You're going to have Grimes come back and play in the summer league with Jericho Sims. And then whoever we draft. It's going to be a tremendous summer league. And Deuce is going to have the ball. That's going to be his basketball in the summer league. And so if he performs like he did in the G League, that's going to create a lot of attention in the Knicks brass who already like him, you know. And so we're going to see how this plays out. It's going to be very interesting to watch. So summer league is going to be very important. So those are the things to me that the Knicks need to focus on. Okay, return to the defensive philosophy, including the personnel that plays defense. You have to trade Julius Randle. You have to sign R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson. Okay, you have to draft well and look for your point guard, which is to me either Jaylen Brunson, Deuce McBride, Emmanuel Quickley, or Joko Bidas. Those are your point guard selections, and you really can't go wrong. I think we're getting close with that, y'all. It's not as bad as some people try to make it out to be. We're getting close with getting and finding our long-term solution at point guard. And I just want to let it play out and see how that goes. But that's where we are. I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll be very disappointed if we don't sign Mitchell Robinson, but I understand. I'm hoping, though, with all my hope that they do. Anyway, y'all have a good Monday. Thanks again for your brethren, for all of your prayers and well wishes. Thanks for the brethren that showed up yesterday. Like I said, Elixir, New York Knicks finest. My man, Yakoba. My man, Castle King. We got to do it again, y'all. We'll see y'all. Shalom.